Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Derwin. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am going to be discussing the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. I heard a message. I don't know if it's leaked. It might have been a leaked message from the CEO, Jonathan Greenblatt, about a problem that they are facing. And he seems pretty upset and stressed, and he calls it a major, major, major problem. And this was recorded in March of this year, so March 2025. And I'll just play it and let you guys listen to it.
Listen.
But I also want to point out that we have a major, major, major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States of support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And the numbers of young people who think that Hamas's, massacre was justified is shockingly and terrifyingly high. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Taglit, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy toward this, like, fast. Because again, like, we've been chasing this left-right divide. It's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation, and the Hamas and their accomplices, the useful idiots in the West, are falling in line in ways that are terrifying. Last thing I'll just say, we saw a dramatic change in the language of the activists here in America on October the 8th. The language of groups that we've long tracked, who've long been problematic, like Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace, they flipped like this and went to like Iranian propaganda. The language I could show you from their toolkits, because those are in their groups. We saw this again on October the 8th. It was that fast. Like the language in their toolkits, all about the Zionist entity and the language that we recognized from Iranian propaganda.
So after hearing that, I dug into the Anti-Defamation League, or the ADL, and I wanted to share this because I know today, this is the 2nd of October, a lot of accounts on TikTok, and I know X is starting to get affected. A lot of accounts were demonetized, suspended, content taken down, or visibility is limited, things like that. And so I feel like, since the acquisition of TikTok by Larry Ellison, who is the biggest private donor to the IDF. He is very, very pro-Israel and pro-Zionist. I want to share some information on what Charlie Kirk felt about the ADL and free speech, because this is what we're seeing right now is the end of free speech in America. And everything I show you is going to kind of support that. So Charlie Kirk was not for banning hate speech. So he says, today the ADL is a hate group that dons a religious mask to justify stoking hatred of the left's enemies. I believe in the First Amendment and free speech as a principle, regardless of what the law says. I don't want to ban anyone's speech, but the ADL has no place extorting X or Twitter or any other social media companies, nor should it dictate to federal law enforcement agencies what hate speech is. And he says ADL is America's #1 purveyor of hate speech. So that is his opinion on the ADL. And I didn't realize how closely intertwined the ADL is with the US government. I'll show you some documentation of that shortly. Also, the ADL considered TPUSA a extremist hate or terrorist group. So that is what they thought of Turning Point. And very recently, a video, I showed it in my last video, I'll link that in the description, of Bibi Netanyahu having a meeting with some of the younger TikTok influencers and kind of giving guidelines as to what their new task is and the message they're going to be carrying going forward, because they have a young audience, because now they know it's not about left and right. They need to really target the young people, the under 30 people, to change their opinions on Israel. Okay. And this has been going around X. It says Israel is paying influencers $7,000 per post. And as a creator, that is a lot. And it's coming from a foreign government. Here's documentation with the, on the right there are the people that are signed up, the influencers signed up for this program. And on the left are the amounts and, you know, what they're getting paid for. So it's a lot. It says here, I think $60,000 to get started. And then there's another agreement for $140,000. And it says post volume 25 to 30. So that's a lot of money for 25 to 30 posts. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly, but that's a lot. And so I don't blame them, you know, for a young person to sign up for this. I can't see how it would be helpful to their platform, to their credibility, you know, because we are now aware of this. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about Project Esther. And this is AI. Project Esther is a plan by the Heritage Foundation to turn any criticism of Israel into hate speech in America. If you publicly criticize Israel, you can be considered part of a terrorist support group. So this means you could be deported, deplatformed, defunded, sued, ostracized. It sets up Israel to operate with total impunity. So if you're an American and you say something against Israel, some of these things could happen to you, and it would be within the law. Okay. Now, the ADL was developed a long time ago in Atlanta in the early 1900s. But since then, a lot has changed. And what it seems to me is it's kind of an extension of, or it's a partner with the FBI. In fact, the FBI and ADL share a building, and this is AI saying that they do share a building. This is a picture of the building. They're right next to each other. And then I also found an article by CNN. This is from, I think, May of last year. And this is news to me. I didn't realize how, like, you know, what was really going on behind the ADL. So it says even Wikipedia labels the top Jewish civil rights group as an unreliable source. And that's from CNN from last year. We can get a date here. Okay, June 20th of last year. So June 20th, 2024. And, you know, I did go to Wikipedia, and I think it's been changed since. But in the underlined area, it says here a bunch of volunteer editors and moderators for one of the most popular information websites, this is called Wikipedia, voted last week to label the ADL as a generally unreliable source on the Israel-Palestine conflict. So the ADL should not usually be cited in Wikipedia articles on that topic, except for extraordinary circumstances. Here's a continuation of the article. So I thought I wanted to point this out because there is a quote from John Greenblatt, who is the CEO, who you heard speaking in the first clip about the major problem. He says, let's make it very clear, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. and he said this publicly at the State of Hate event in March, which is not true. I think that is propaganda. That's never been my understanding of those two things, because I am one, not the other. But I think this is kind of what they've been pushing for some time. And on the second paragraph, ADL's leadership has taken a much more aggressive stance than most academic researchers in blurring the distinction between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, said James Loeffler, professor of modern Jewish history at Johns Hopkins University. So, I mean, I do think the idea that those two phrases are the same, those two ideas are the same, is going to be heavily pushed on social media going forward. And I know my audience isn't exactly the under 30 demographic, but I'm sure everyone knows someone in that age group, family and friends. And so, talk to the younger people about what's really going on, because they're the ones that's going to be exposed to, these influencers, I forget how many there are, these people on the right. And, when you're younger, you just don't have the knowledge and the background to decipher, what's the truth and what's not. And so I do think they are planning to really, push the pro-Israel or the Hasbara on the younger generation, because now they know that's the generation that has turned, and that's the generation of the future. Those are the future soldiers for wars. They're the future politicians and leaders. And so it is a very threatening thing to have this big shift. And it happened very quickly. I think the shift, he was saying, started after October 7th, when the war started. So that's the main thing I wanted to share today. And hopefully this video goes up and stays up. And thank you guys for listening, and I will see you all soon. Bye.